Hey guys, namaste. Wanted to share with you today a little restorative practice. Restorative with a little hint of yin. A few people have reached out and said that, some days I want to kick my ass. Can we do something more chill? So this is that. This is great if you are, working from home all day and at the end of the day you just feel kind of fried and you just want to moment. It's also good if you are this time of year. I like to see so many people running and biking, and everyone's picking up like just some high energy workouts. This is a good balance to that, to just kind of give you a moment of stillness. You will need 2 blocks and a bolster. Now, if you don't have those, if you have 2 blocks but not the bolster, if you have a couple of blankets, kind of sturdy, firm blankets, you could use those and just kind of fold them like this and stack them on top of each other. And that could be your bolster on top of blocks. And if you don't have blocks, thick books, something sturdy, you could probably even use like a couple of cushions kind of crisscrossed. Our first little setup is our bolster stacked on top of blocks. So one block is I have on the second setting, the other block at the tall setting, and then I just have my bolster on top of that. Okay? So find your way onto your mat. You're going to back that thing right up to the bolster, and we're going to lie back onto our bolster. You want your head to be supported. So if you're not using a bolster and you're using blankets and blocks, you're going to want to make sure that your head is on one of those blocks. If you don't have the blocks, you could still use the blankets and or a bolster. You just won't be on the diagonal, obviously. You'd be flat on your back. I want to time these poses, so I'm going to get my little timer out. I'm not texting and teaching, I promise. So legs extended, bring the sole of your left foot to the inside of the right leg, and just let your leg kind of drop off to the side. I'm going to set this for 1.5 minutes. So it's like tree pose, but I guess it's like fallen tree pose. Now if you're on the bolster, let your shoulders kind of melt back. So you get a little bit of a heart opening back bend here. And because it's a restorative pose, you want to look at where you can soften into it. So we're not engaging the glutes or even the legs. That extended leg, you're letting that foot just kind of drop open. Let your breath soften in to its natural rhythm. And just try to be here on your mat in this pose. Not necessarily trying to be on your to-do list. I know that's a little challenging right now, but everything's closed, so you have nowhere really that you need to be or that you can get to. So just be here. Let your eyes close. Let that lower jaw find some distance from that top jaw. We just have a couple more seconds. All right, so then you're going to bring that left knee up and send out your left leg. Bend your right knee, and then let your right knee open up. Another 90 seconds. So sometimes the stillness is the challenge in a practice like this. Because we're just, maybe in perpetual go mode, or you're in like a constant full body contraction. So it takes a good 30 seconds to just soften into that pose. You're halfway there. 10 seconds to go. Then extend that leg out. And you can either be still, you could do a very gentle rolling in and out of the feet, or not quite full temper tantrum, like temper tantrum on like Quaaludes or something. Where are those when you need them? Then we're going to bend the knees, bring the feet to the floor. Let your soles of the feet come together. Now, you're going to let your knees just kind of flop open into bound angle pose. The closer the feet are to you, the more intense this pose is. And that's not what we're going for the purpose of this practice today. So slide the feet forward a little bit. This might allow your knees to drop down. We're going to go for 3 minutes on this one. Then here, that's my cat, Frank Sinatra. Hi, baby. Yeah. What else would you like to tell the people? That's it? Okay. Well, oh goodness. You could also do what Frank's doing. Just expose your belly to the light and be very, very handsome. Totally forgot where I was going with this pose. Let your shoulders drop open. You could bring your hands onto the ribs. If it feels like you're having to hold your arms up, just slide your hands maybe down to the belly. And just inflate the belly and ribs on the inhale and sigh on the exhale. It's not a very gentlemanly angle, Frank. Behold the belly. Touch with your eyes. And then just let your arms eventually drop down to where the back of the hands are resting on the mat. Maybe you move the hands out to the side a little bit. Yeah. Let your palms rest face up, like you were letting water or sand kind of run between your fingers. And this would explain why my bolster is covered in cat hair. This is one of the added benefits of a home practice, is that your pets will come and crawl all over you or stand over you. That rarely happens in the yoga studio. A little more than 10 seconds left here. If you need to use hands on the outer thighs to help bring the soles of the feet back to the floor, go ahead and do that. We want the feet on our mat, our knees facing up. And just pause here for a second. And then roll to either side that works for you. Prop yourself up with one arm. We're just going to sit up in front of that bolster and just hinge over a little bit. Just take a little moment to counter that shape. We're going to do one more pose with our back on the bolster. So scoot back to it. Now this time when you lay back on it, walk your feet pretty wide, maybe as wide as your mat, if that feels good to your hips. And then I'm going to put a minute on the clock here. You're going to drop your knees over to the right, and you might have to walk the left foot a little closer to the right foot. It's a twist-ish. Like there's definitely a little twist happening in this low back left hip, but we're not going for the big like detox twist that we normally go for in our vinyasa class. This is just a little moment to open in hips and let go of some tension that we're holding on to in there. Not that I know your business, but I feel like everyone is probably holding on to some tension in their hips. It's good to sigh in these poses because it reminds you to relax into them. And it's good to just kind of sigh throughout the day, I think. If you're like me, you find yourself just so many times holding on to the breath. All right, then we're going to come back up. I hear you. Come back up to the center. Pause for a full breath in and out. And then we'll drop the knees over to the other side. Again, as you can see, there's no effort for this top leg, this one, to even make it close to that bottom leg. Just ride sort of on the big toe side of that foot. You could always scoot the foot back to let it come down, or you could scoot it closer to this other foot to let it feel like you're not holding it up. I think you're about to get an extreme close-up of Frank. Yes, and that's the butt. Usually in my home practice, he could care less. But I think because there's a camera, he's a bit of a narcissist and wants everyone to behold him. All right, then you can bring the feet back to the floor, shift the hips back to the center. And then again, we're going to roll to one side. We're going to prop ourselves up. Now we're going to change the shape of this setup here. So for this one, again, you can use the blankets stacked on top of each other if you don't have a bolster. If you've been using a cushion, like off your couch or like big thick pillows, I would say maybe dial down to the blankets for this part. And if you have blankets and blocks, you could put your blocks like this, side by side, and then put your blanket underneath it, or over top of it. Sorry, underneath it. Don't know what that means. All right, so this is one of my favorite poses. You're going to bring the bolster about halfway down your mat, and it's going to be parallel with these short edges of your mat. Let's move these blocks out of the way. I'm going to use both the blocks too for this little side body bend. So it doesn't matter really which side you start on. So you're going to put one of your rib cage, the bottom one, over this bolster. Then take your block, scoot down a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So rib cage on the bolster, one block, second setting probably, for your head, other block in your hand. And just let your arm rest like that with the palm up. This arm is going to come over top. You're going to let the the block be on the floor. We're going to go for 2 minutes on this one. Now you could certainly do this without the block under the head or under the hand. Now if you do that without the block under the head, your head is going to tip towards the floor, and for 2 minutes I feel like that might not be super comfortable. And my legs, I'm just letting my legs kind of be bent and staggered here. I'm trying to make this, again, more of a restorative pose with just a touch of yin versus the other way around. You have about 30 seconds left on this side. Sorry, that was a complete lie. I can't do math. You have way more than 30 seconds left. A little less than a minute now, actually. This feels very good in the side body and the shoulder of the top part here. You know, it is allergy and pollen season, and sometimes you can feel a little like congested, or lack of a better word, gunky. So this is a good way to sort of open up these ribs a little bit, or get the feeling that you're opening up into the ribs. hope that you can hear the birds that are out in my yard. Really nice. Yeah. All right, so bring that top arm down first. Stop the timer. Use that top hand to come to the floor to press you up. We're going to come up to a seated position just so we can just pause for a moment. I'm going to move the bolster over to this side rather than have you look at my posterior for 2 minutes. That's extra if you want to do that. If I end up having to start an OnlyFans page, I'll let you know. So you want to be on the opposite rib cage this time. And again, I like the block under the head because otherwise then it's just kind of this thing. And again, that will get really uncomfortable really quickly. And then top hand can hold that block. You can reach over and pull my shirt down. Again, extra for skin. Let's start our 2 minutes here. Close your eyes. Sigh and relax. You know, just as important as it is to move and exercise and all that stuff, it's also important to find the balance of that, of taking a little bit of time to be still and let your body restore, repair, heal, all that kind of stuff. So sometimes this particular kind of practice is more challenging for a lot of us. It's kind of like if you do exclusively gentle and yin restorative classes, and then someone drags you into a vinyasa class. Like it feels different, it feels weird, but you know, there's the yin to the yang. He is almost never this affectionate on such a consistent basis. Again, I think it's all for the cameras. Everyone sees right through you, Frank. I just sit here and give myself a bath and block your shot. And then bring that top arm down. Again, use that hand to come to the floor to help you up. And at this point, you know, maybe you want to come into a little tabletop position and just give yourself either a little cat-cow if you feel like you need some movement, or hips to heels for child's pose. Let's spend about 30 seconds there. And then this is one of my most favorite poses. I don't even know that it's really a pose. So you're going to come up, you're going to turn your bolster the other way so that it's running parallel to that long side of your mat. I'm going to put my right hip right up against this bolster, and then my hands are going to frame it. Again, at this point, you could just switch back to that. If you were using like a big firm pillow, you could do that. If you're doing a block with blankets stacked on top of it, you could do that. You might even be able to just do it with the 2 blankets with no block under it. All right, so framing up your block, or your bolster rather, then you're just going to lie down on it. So because I have my right hip, I have to take my glasses off too. Because I have my right hip against it, I have to go right cheek. Some people can do left cheek. I don't think I've ever been able to do that. So if you do, maybe you have actual magical powers. And you're just going to lay on this bolster with a slight twist in your back. And it feels really nice. Sometimes you doze off in this. If I do, hopefully my timer will wake me up. Maybe that could be another special video that I post at some point, me sleeping. I don't know, there's a market for everything. For me, this really gets that area between the mid-back and low back. Just about 30 seconds here. And then your hands on your mat. Prop yourself up here. And I like, from this one, I just like to go right into the other side. So go ahead and pivot onto that other hip. Oh, I guess you are going to get the butt shot. Tip extra if you like it. Hands frame up that bolster. So lay down on it. My left hip is up against my bolster. So I'm going to go left cheek on bolster. Again, if it feels good to you, feel free to do the right. All right, then your hands back to your bolster. Glasses back onto my face. Make your way up into that little tabletop pose. Give yourself a little wiggle. Again, maybe a little cat-cow here. So last pose we're going to do here will be sort of an inversion, a little bit of legs up the wall. So minus the wall. But if you have one, feel free to go over to that. So we're going to go back to that shape that we did earlier with the blocks and the bolster. So again, one block, maybe second setting that you can't see, and then other block, tall setting. And then I'm going to take my bolster, I'm going to put it right on top there. So this is going to kind of become my wall. I'm going to scoot real close to it, almost inappropriately so. And then just put my legs up onto it so I get a nice little tilt to it. By the way, the thing with these poses is that you could pick any of them and do them on your own. Like that little twist would be great to do. This is good to do. You could do one leg at a time, where you have one leg on the floor and change it up. Otherwise, bring one hand to belly, one hand to heart. Let your elbows rest on the floor. Take a deep breath in. Open the mouth, exhale. And he's back. Sometimes on this one, there might feel like there's a bit of, like the bolster and the blocks aren't sturdy or stable enough for you. I promise you they are. Unclench your glutes if you find that you're sort of clenching to hold yourself up onto the bolsters. And then to come out of this, you're just going to bring one foot at a time to the floor. You can certainly stay where you are there. And then we're going to come over to one side and find our way upright to a seated position. So again, that's just, just something for one of the days that you want something a little easier, not something so sweat driven or strength muscle building. It's important, especially now, to balance between these extremes to find your middle path here. If you can find your middle path on your mat, hopefully you can find your middle path out in the world, out in this craziness. I hope that this practice serves you in some way. I'll be posting more for sure. And by all means, follow along any of your studios. If you don't live in Charleston, every studio is pretty much doing, thank you, mister, is pretty much doing virtual classes. Support your studios, support your teachers, support your neighbors and your friends. And I guess on behalf of Frank Sinatra and I, thank you. We say namaste to you. Yes.